Welcome back to Morning Live. So this Women's Month, the Market Theatre will highlight the contributions and impact that Florence Phillips had in an understanding of art through a production titled Florence. This play intends to shine the light on Florence, who was an unsung hero. Florence was a South African art patroness and promoter of indigenous culture. The production aims to highlight the contributions and impact that Florence Phillips had in building a greater understanding of art with early Johannesburg and its contemporary society. Now, to tell us more, we are joined in studio by director Greg Homan and actress Leila Henriquez. Hello and welcome to Morning Live.
Hi. Good morning.
I want to start with you, Greg, because you're the director of this play. What was the significance of sharing the story of Florence Phillips?
Sure. So the play I encountered for the first time in April. James Ngobo of the Market Theatre, he approached me with it, and it's written by a playwright called Maya Tobe. And when I first read it, it's a really interesting piece. So yes, it's about Florence Phillips, and she founded the Johannesburg Art Gallery and has made various contributions to art and to old age homes and orphanages and so on, from right back to 1890, 1900 in Johannesburg. But the playwright also uses her life to explore other themes and ideas around what it means to live in a big city, the complication of history, how history and dates can be really messy things, how our history and relationship to colonialism is a really messy and complicated business. So all of that is mixed up in the play, and that really excited me about this project.
And for you, Leila, I mean, you play the role of Florence, somebody who's being celebrated as an unsung hero. For you, what was it like to embody this unsung hero?
Well, I play her ghost. So I play her ghost sitting on a bench in Joburg Park outside the Johannesburg Art Gallery. And I move between two characters. I move between the actress who's quite resistant to playing her because she is a colonialist figure, and the actual character, Florence Phillips. Well, the ghost of Florence Phillips. And I mean, to play Florence Phillips, you just become aware of this enormous grit that this woman had. You know, this formidable presence and this incredible vision against such a different world that we inhabit now. So it's quite extraordinary. And then to play the different roles, it kind of makes this resistance between the two that makes it quite challenging. Yeah.
Greg, you touched on some of the themes, and you explained how this story is about more than her life, and it's looking at different aspects of Johannesburg, and some of those themes could translate to where we are today, living in the city of Johannesburg. Why was it important to sort of merge those two elements, where we are today and where she was back in her time?
Sure. So I don't think the play so much is a celebration of her life, or it rather uses her life as an access point, and it plays with history to explore our contemporary moment. And that's really what the playwright is trying to do, and what we've tried to do with the production. So we're using a particular moment in our history as Johannesburg, and then through that, looking at how fences, particularly, because the Johannesburg Art Gallery, if anyone's visited it, is surrounded by a fence, and that becomes a metaphor in the play. And if we look at world politics at the moment, the notion of fences and how we keep people in and keep people out, and if we go back in history, I mean, it's a common thread in humanity that when we feel fearful and when we feel scared, we keep people out. And so that metaphor is really at the heart of the play. And so we could be talking about Palestine and Israel, we could be talking about Trump and the Mexico border, we could be talking about how we have gated communities in Sandton. It's all part of the complexity of the play. And so Maya Tobe, who wrote the play, is really using theatre as a means to explore many things about the contemporary moment, but by drawing on an historical figure. And in some ways a historical figure that, because of her colonial roots, allows a kind of tension for the audience and for us.
Leila, it's Women's Month. Let's look at the importance of sharing women's stories and using art to do that. I mean, you're a woman in the arts. How important is that?
Well, if you look back at Florence Phillips and you sort of realize in that patriarchal society how hard it must have been for her to create this extraordinary space out of nowhere, the kind of deep strength she must have had to do that. It's really aspirational and inspiring. But also it's sort of astonishing that, yes, we've moved on a lot, but we're still up against so much. So, yeah, that's what has brought it up for me.
And just finally, Greg, for somebody who hasn't seen the play yet and who has never heard of Florence Phillips or the story, what can they expect? What's like the one thing you can say they should come to the Market Theatre for?
So, firstly, it's a really rich theatrical experience. We've got a set designed by Richard Forbes, who's a sculptor. So Leela stands on a sculpture, essentially, and performs the play. We've got beautiful lighting by Nomvula Molepo, and a wonderful sound design. So it's a very rich theatrical experience. It's very visually stimulating. Plus you get a texture of who this woman was and this history. Plus you get to understand what it's like to live in a big city. And part of that is through Johannesburg, but it's also about many cities in the world. It's about contemporary cities and the complexity of our identity in relationship to big cities. So it's a really rich and complex and fascinating and quite fun piece. There's quite a lot of humor in it as well. So it's an exciting, I think, theatrical experience for an audience.
And it sounds like a brilliant way where you're taking all those themes and you're combining them and making it a full-on experience for the audience. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That was director Greg Homan and actress Leela Henriquez talking to us about the production Florence, which is currently taking place at the Market Theatre in Johannesburg. We're back with more after this.